This episode is brought to you by Google Gemini. With the Gemini app, you can talk live and have a real-time conversation with an AI assistant. It's great for all kinds of things, like if you want to practice for an upcoming interview, ask for advice on things to do in a new city, or brainstorm creative ideas. And by the way, this script was actually read by Gemini. Download the Gemini app for iOS and Android today. Must be 18 plus to use Gemini Live.
70,000 people are here, and Bob Dylan is the reason for it.
Inspired by the true story.
For anyone who's gonna hold your attention on a stage, you have to kind of be a freak.
Are you a freak?
Hope so.
And starring Timothée Chalamet as Bob Dylan. He defied everyone.
Turn it down!
Play loud!
To change everything.
Make some noise, BD.
Timothée Chalamet, Edward Norton, Elle Fanning, Monica Barbaro. A complete unknown. Only in theaters Christmas Day. Rated R. Under 17, not admitted without parent.
I was a Girl Scout troop leader for 10 years, and the best part about it is completely selfish. It wasn't that I inspired young girls. It's just that I got to spend a lot of time as a fly on the wall to listen to the concerns, the fears, and the vulnerabilities of girls that were my daughter's age and were much like my patients. It was great insight. Also, I was able to keep up with trends and the latest music, which I've totally lost now that they've all finished college. I'm hopelessly unhip and untrendy now. Although it seems that maybe trendy is out anyway. Have you seen what people are wearing? Anyway, I remember this one day. I was driving 4 of the girls to a meeting, and one of them said, "Oh my God, my thighs look so fat." And another girl said to her, "That's just because they're squished against the seat. Your legs are just stronger than mine." And there's so much in that quick exchange for me to unpack. I finally understand what was going on just a little bit better after I interviewed an adolescent medicine specialist. Dr. Maya Kumar's on the show today. She takes care of adolescents at UC San Diego and Rady Children's Hospital. Here's one thing I learned, and you're going to hear her explain this in more depth. Yes, for sure, society and the environment that kids are raised in no doubt contribute to how kids feel about their bodies. But there's a huge component of body image that is just inborn. I don't know why this surprised me so much. I just hoped that as parents, we have total control over our kids' feelings about themselves. And as parents, I think we're also prepared to take all the blame if they don't. But it's not totally true. Although, developing body image is extremely complex. I'm Dr. Wendy Hunter, and I'm the pediatrician next door. I'm that doctor friend you call for practical advice about your kids' health. I mix the science of medicine with the reality of parenting. As parents, we want to raise kids who see their worth beyond the mirror. Not only are there a ton of influences, including genetics, that affect how one sees and feels about their body, but to make our jobs even more challenging, there is no single ideal of beauty. As a parent, you can't make any assumptions about your child's view of their body. We're going to get to that and how to sort through all of this. But first, let's see if we can understand this at all. What are the most common body image challenges that you see in adolescents?
That is such a great question because I feel like the body image challenges I see are getting increasingly complex. One thing that I feel like I've learned when I'm talking to young people is not to make assumptions about what their desired body image is.
Oh, that's such a good point. Because I do that all the time.
Totally. We assume people want to be thin, but I've discovered that's not actually the case. I mean, one kind of indisputable and unfortunate fact is that weight stigma has become very, 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 very pervasive in our society. And by our society, I'm referring to Western North American type society. I think we need to acknowledge, I think a nice point maybe to start off with is there are many cultures where a thin body is not actually considered ideal. And I feel like when I'm talking to my patients, I see when I ask them, is there something you would change about your body? I will often hear, especially from kids with, from certain cultural groups, oh, I wish I had a bigger butt. I wish that I wish I had more curves, right? Like people
Yeah.
will sometimes have very poor body image because they're not as curvy or quote unquote as thick, as they want to be. But I think the most common thing is this idea, especially like here where we live, that like thin is good and larger is bad.
You said it's a good question to ask. Is there something you'd like to change about your body? Is that a question parents can ask to their child?
I think I would start that conversation by saying, what's something you like about your body?
Okay.
I sometimes have that conversation and try to model it like in my office in front of parents by asking their child, like, tell me something you like about your body. Unfortunately, kids will say like, nothing. I can't think of anything.
Right, which is so sad.
And when I get that response, I say, think a little bit bigger. Think about not just the way your body looks, but the things your body can do. And when I kind of give them some examples and push them, I have kids say, I'm good at singing. I'm like, yeah, your voice is part of your body. Like the way your voice box is put together is like how you make that beautiful sound. Or I'm a good dancer. I'm like, yeah, that's like how your body moves, right? So by getting kids to be like a little bit more expansive in their idea, I think that you can have a much more robust conversation. Help kids to kind of expand their idea. Like it's not just about what your body looks like, but it's about all the amazing things that your body can do.
So even as a parent, if you're worried about your child's weight or you've got an eye on it, you would recommend they too focus on lifestyle factors, like, oh, are we getting exercise and just being healthy, I guess. I know,
100%.
And then I'm sure as a pediatrician, like, because I've listened to you many times, that I am very careful about how I approach weight in my clinic. But for a parent who brings their child somewhere and then the pediatrician says, oh, you're obese. How do you respond to that to your child when you leave the office? So I kind of like going back to, hey, we talked in the doctor's office. Tell me something you like about your body. I like that as a response. Most pediatricians start a well child visit by reviewing the growth curve, as you probably know. And as doctors, we were practically brainwashed, honestly, into addressing any BMI or body mass index that's over the 95th percentile as obese. But as you can tell, there is a lot of nuance here. Bodybuilders have BMIs in the obese range, and they're clearly not obese, and people come in lots of shapes and sizes. So the range of healthy is a little bit broader than just this graph of growth curves. The danger here is that commenting on a child's weight in front of them can set susceptible individuals up for developing disordered eating. Dr. Kumar and I went off on a tangent talking about how doctors can talk about weight with patients, and that's in a bonus episode this week. I've heard Dr. Kumar speak about this before, and I've changed my approach with patients. We picked back up with what I say instead now, which may be a helpful way for a parent to talk about these issues with their own kids. I like to talk to kids about, like, okay, we talked about your weight, and let's not focus on your weight, but what is a goal you have for your own athleticism? So like a kid will be like, you know what, I really want to be able to make 2 dunks in basketball, or I want to be able to do 10 push-ups. That is a great goal, right? Rather than focusing on the weight. What about the way parents talk about their own weight in front of their children? Does that make a difference?
It makes a huge difference. Yeah. I think that's one of the single biggest things for any parents who are listening right now. Please, 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 please don't talk about your weight. Don't talk about other people's weight. Don't make observations about the weight or body shape of somebody on TV. Don't talk about your child's weight. Please just don't talk about weight, because kids hear it, whether you're directly speaking to them or not. And every time a parent gets on a scale and says, ugh, I wish I could lose that last 10 pounds, or ugh, I'm so bad, I'm eating chocolate. Like, your kid internalizes that. And they don't necessarily have the context to see the gray zone. They're seeing it in black and white. One thing that I find really startling is that children develop weight bias internalization and weight stigma by the time they're toddlers.
Oh my God.
And this is highly correlated with whether they're, in the studies, they use moms. So whether their moms had weight stigma. And by weight stigma, I'm talking about having a negative perception of people who are of a higher weight, or making assumptions that those people have certain qualities we really shouldn't assume, like, oh, they don't have willpower, or they're lazy, or they're not healthy, or they don't take care of themselves, which is really not an assumption you can make from anyone just by looking at them. When parents have those attitudes, their children, as toddlers, are more likely to carry those attitudes. And then it's not just something you apply to others, it's something you apply to yourself. So weight stigma is the way you perceive other people. But there's another term that's used in literature called weight bias internalization. In other words, the extent to which I judge myself based on my weight or my shape or, my BMI or my appearance, right?
So kids get their ideas about this when they're really young from their parents primarily, because there's really no other influences. Do older kids get influenced by social media or other societal influences, their friends? Who's impacting the way kids view their bodies?
One thing that I do want to point out, and I was actually just having this conversation with a resident yesterday. His question was, why did eating disorders explode during the pandemic?
I definitely saw that.
That's right. I think a lot of our colleagues saw that. Yes, it hasn't gotten better, right?
No.
And we talked about how 50 to 80% of eating disorders are genetically and biologically determined and have nothing to do with societal influence.
Wow, I had no idea.
It's a lot. It's the majority. I once was involved in the care of a 12-year-old boy from a Mennonite colony who had never had any interaction with so-called modern society. This kid had never watched TV, never read a magazine, certainly hadn't gone on social media, didn't have a computer, didn't have a phone. Family used a horse and buggy. This kid had full-blown anorexia.
So he did not have Instagram.
Nope. No Instagram in that particular case.
Right. Not Instagram.
Right. And so what I was telling my resident is that many people have this inherent biological predisposition to poor body image and, ultimately the development of disordered eating or a full-blown eating disorder.
If you as a parent have in mind that you want to help your child develop a positive body image and you're finding it challenging, now you know why. Much of a person's concept of their own body is kind of inborn. Add to that what kids see and hear in the world, whether it's from a friend who says they feel fat, or a professional athlete that your child admires, or the words their doctor used when they were 5 years old. The conceptualization of how your body looks is at the front of many kids' and adults' minds. Dr. Kumar is a wealth of information on all of this, so I sort of broke our conversation up into two topics. This week, we're focusing on raising a child with a healthy body image, and next week, we explore the role that diet and food choices play, as well as how eating disorders develop and how to recognize signs that your child or a friend might be experiencing issues with diet, food, and disordered eating. It can be subtle.
Hey, it's Austin James. If you're like me, trying to live your best life while living with diabetes, you can relate to worrying if you're doing a good job managing your diabetes. I use the Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor to get real-time glucose readings and see the impact of every meal and activity to make better decisions. The Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor can help me live life with diabetes on my own terms, and it gives me more time for the things I love, like being a dad and a musician. Now this is progress. Learn more at freestylelibre.us.
For prescription only. Safety info found at freestylelibre.us.
Gift the remarkable with Marc Jacobs fragrances this holiday season. From the iconic Daisy and Perfect to the all-new Daisy Wild, Marc Jacobs perfume gift sets include everything she needs to feel special. From her favorite fragrance, plus the matching travel spray, holiday gifts don't get much more perfect than this. So if you're looking for a gift inspiration these holidays, gift the remarkable with Marc Jacobs.
Botox Cosmetic, out of botulinum toxin A, FDA approved for over 20 years. So, talk to your specialist to see if Botox Cosmetic is right for you.
For full prescribing information, including boxed warning, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
Remember to ask for Botox Cosmetic by name. To see for yourself and learn more, visit BotoxCosmetic.com. That's BotoxCosmetic.com.
Here we pick back up on how developing a body image is based partly on whether a person has a predisposition or a certain vulnerability to low self-image. And we also talk about what other factors might contribute to developing a positive body image. Here's what's going on with some of these kids.
They may need a little more help. Like they may not have the same resiliency as someone else does, just kind of naturally built in. You know, because a kid who biologically doesn't have that predisposition, even if somebody around them is like, I feel so gross. I need to go on a cleanse. You know, like a kid without that predisposition would be like, cleanse? No thanks. Can I have your burger if you're not going to eat it? Do you know what I mean? Like, and that would be normal, right? But I think there's a lot of kids who would be like, cleanse? Should I be on a cleanse? Do you know what I mean? Like it kind of.
Yeah. So which kid are you? What about being involved in an activity or sport from a young age? Is that protective? Does that encourage positive body image? Like, oh, I'm a soccer player, you know, or I'm a gymnast.
Weirdly enough, I've seen a lot of cases where it tends to worsen body image because, first of all, there are certain sports or activities where a certain physical appearance or
ballet,
shape
I'm looking
or
at you.
Correct, are like heavily emphasized. You know, other sports where this comes up a lot are figure skating, gymnastics, cheerleading, like especially if you're a flyer and you're being thrown in the air. And so like being quote unquote lighter is supposed to be, you know, more advantageous. But we don't talk enough about sports where there's more male participation, like wrestling or boxing or anything where there's a weight class. Because in athletic circles, a lot of disordered eating behaviors are common and normalized, and sometimes even encouraged by coaches and certainly by peers. And people might be very driven to, quote unquote, make weight by going on like really, like frankly, dangerous diets in order to qualify, you know, at a certain weight for a particular event. I also think that, you know, going back to how heterogeneous this concept of body image can be, for a lot of people, it's not about thinness, it's about muscularity. And that's become an increasingly, I think, recognized form of poor body image is not that, you know, people want to be really, really tiny, but actually they want to be really big and muscular or very lean and muscular. And yet, in some ways, it doesn't matter exactly what you have in mind. If you're changing your eating and activity behaviors in a pathologic way to achieve it, and if your mind and emotions are affected in the same way, I mean, it's the same thing.
Yeah, what do we say to our kids when they're going into sports and making comments like that?
If I'm being real honest, there are some sports and activities that are so heavily influenced by weight culture. I have 2 daughters. I am very, very reluctant to enroll them in ballet. They're 5 and 3.
Right.
I don't know what they would necessarily pick up on.
Well, you said like toddlers are aware of body image, right?
Well, that's what I'm worried about.
They're learning everything right now. I always try to encourage families to play a lot of different sports. Like, okay, you're dying to do ballet. Okay, we're going to do that for 4 months. And then you're going to play soccer with your friends or whatever.
And I don't mean to vilify like the actual, you know, art of ballet at all, right? But I think be really, really conscientious about the studio you choose. Like, I actually really enjoy dance myself. Not ballet, because I'm not very good at it, but like just different kinds of dance.
You have to say, I'm not good at it yet. Got to add the word yet. We're going to be really positive.
But I recently found a dance studio. First of all, they do all different kinds of dance. And secondly, you could tell within the first few minutes of being there that there was a wide age range and a wide range of like races and ethnicities and a wide range of body types. And I knew this is the place for me. And I think that parents should do some recon about any ballet studio or dance studio or gymnastics school or figure skating school or any of those things. Take a look at whether these folks are aiming for like making everybody kind of the same like cookie cutter product at the end of their training. Look to see if there is a diversity of body types that's embraced, really embraced. Look for that diversity among the instructors.
That is a genius tip. I love this idea because this is something you can very concretely do is as a parent, go look at who's there.
Go check it out. Before you bring your kid, go check it out and ask to observe a class or meet some of the teachers.
Yeah.
If every teacher kind of looks the same and they are all of a certain body type, then regardless of the kids who are coming to the class, it's almost like I am the teacher and this is the expectation of what you should look like, right? On the other hand, there are really some fantastic studios that have a lot of value placed on inclusion, real inclusion. Like if you are interested, and come and learn with us and have some fun. And if that is the emphasis, then that's great. And I'm happy to say I've had a lot of patients who they might not fit into the traditional stereotypical concept of what like a ballerina's body looks like, but they have found their home in a place that feels comfortable and where they feel no pressure whatsoever to look a certain way. And they are talented and they love dance.
What about television, Instagram? Like where are kids seeing images of bodies that they're mimicking? I know they will dress like something they've seen on TV or in social media. So I'm sure they're thinking about like the shape of their nose, the shape of their lips. Like what's the trend right now? What do we need to be watching for?
Filtering and Photoshop.
Totally. Okay.
I think what we actually need to be worried less about is that their child is going to see a real person that they desperately want to look like, and more worried that they're going to see either an AI generated image or a highly manipulated image that's not actually real, presented as real. And that's the completely unrealistic ideal that the child then aspires to. And that is not the exception, it is the norm. I think every parent needs to have serious conversations with their kids about media literacy for so many reasons. But if, today we're talking about body image, to explain to them the number of steps that goes into filtering and modifying an image. And even among their peers who are, posting these very glamorous, photos of themselves, think about how long did they spend to make it look effortless? I mean, I am amazed at kids who tell me they have lighting, they have specific camera angles. And then after that, they might manipulate the image, electronically to make it look just perfect, right? Talking to your kids about how there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of modified images out there. And I think the last component I would add to that is it's not just like your peers. This is an industry. This is a rapidly expanded industry that's designed to make money off of the insecurities of normal people. I think another thing would be kind of watching their behavior when they go shopping for clothes. Because I think that sometimes that draws out a lot of people's poor body image when they're like, oh, I hate how I look in this. You know what I mean? And you might say, tell me more about why you don't like it.
Yeah. So, and I like the tell me more.
Yes.
Because you do need to talk to your kids about this. But like you said at the beginning, you can't assume that they want to be skinnier. Correct. It might be that they hate their flat chest or they hate their big butt or their little butt or their calves. or their small feet. Like there's so many things to not like about your body.
There's
Plus
so
it's
many
changing.
things.
Ugh.
It really is. And so I think that opening up those conversations with your kids is so important. Help yourself to understand what it is they're going through. I will add, though, that body image is an extremely abstract concept. And it's very, very hard to describe and talk about when developmentally you're just not quite there. Many kids with poor body image can't necessarily tell you they have poor body image. And this is where observing their behaviors is actually significantly more important.
What about comparison? Because I see that a lot in like 11, 12-year-olds when they're changing and they're all at different stages of puberty. Is there a way we can address that?
I think to normalize the fact that puberty happens at a wide range of ages and is experienced differently by every individual, and that it is developmentally normal in early adolescence to compare yourself intently with others and to be really like trying to understand your changing body. But the guidance I think that can help the most alongside that is, but all of you are normal. You're normal. Your friend who's 2 feet taller than you somehow over the summer is also normal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is where that dog analogy that we've talked about in the past can kind of be useful, right?
This is my ultimate favorite thing that you share, and I want you to share it right now.
Okay. So when I'm talking to younger kids especially, but even teenagers about body image, I often open the subject by asking, do you like dogs? And most kids like dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And I might ask, like, do you have a dog? Or, does someone in your family have a dog? And I ask them what kind of dog they have. And some of them will say, oh, like I have a Chihuahua, or I have a Great Dane or a German Shepherd, or, something like that. And we talk about how it's so cool that these are all dogs. They have the same species. They're not a different species. They're all one species. And yet some dogs are tiny little purse dogs, and other dogs are big, muscular hunting dogs, and other dogs are lean racing dogs, and other dogs are big and fluffy, right? Like it depends on the dog, but they're all healthy in their own way. And if a German Shepherd tried to weigh the same as a Chihuahua, it would get very, very sick. It would not be normal for that German Shepherd. And just as there is diversity among dogs who are all one species, there is diversity in human body types as well. And I think it behooves all of us to understand, what kind of dog am I? And how can I be the healthiest version of that dog that I can be? If I am a German Shepherd, that is my body type. And I'm not going to have the same body type as my friend who's built more like a Chihuahua.
This approach of talking about dogs is just brilliant to use with kids, especially girls, as they start to compare themselves to others. It reframes their thinking and gives them a visual image to make it easier to change the way they're thinking about themselves. The other tips you can use to help your kids develop their body image are to be thoughtful about the sports teams, clubs, and the gyms that you take them to. Look around for a variety of body types and for the training emphasis to be on support, personal development, and teamwork rather than on competition and ranking or an ideal body image for that sport. You can open up conversations with your kids by asking what they like about their body. And it can be something their body can do, like sing. And to go deeper, you can ask if there is something they would change about their body, but tread lightly. Our environment can be triggering for a lot of kids. I had a good friend who played briefly for the NFL, and he told me that all professional athletes have some sort of disordered eating. It's kind of part of how they build their body for their sport. Dr. Kumar and I touched on the role that diet and food can play as it intermingles with body image, and that's the topic of the next episode. For more from the Pediatrician Next Door, find me on the web at pediatriciannextdoorpodcast.com. If you've got a question about the weird things kids do, send an email to hello@pediatriciannextdoorpodcast.com for a chance to hear your voice on the show. I'm Dr. Wendy Hunter, and I'm the Pediatrician Next Door. This show is produced by Red Rock Music. Make sure to subscribe and leave a review wherever it is you're listening. I'll be back next time with more.